Hey guys, Patrick here. I'm at the THEbTEAM news desk. It is April 7th. We just finished the first 3 months of 2022, as the smart people call it, Q1. And what a Q1 it was. We went from a very quiet, sluggish, boring, disappointing January to historic, extremely strong February and March, both for the supply of new listings and demand or the number of sales. So what we have on our hands now is a changed market. What were we all crying for month in and month out, all through towards the end of last year into the beginning of this? We were all crying for supply. Guess what? Supply is coming because that's what the spring market does. March, April, May in particular, the busiest time of any year for the supply of new listings. So that's what's happening. And then March to some extent, and then April, May, June, the highest number of sales happen. So what has that brought? It's brought a new market. So everybody was asking for new listings. We're getting them. And now there's all this uncertainty or sort of caution or concern or, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Well, we got what we were asking for, which is supply. And I'll go through the numbers very quickly, but we got what we were asking for. So in effect, we got what we wanted, which was a changed market, a more level market. And now it's super heightened, but it's also spring. And this is what we typically should expect in a healthy spring market. So let's get into the numbers. Questions we're getting these days. Is the market changing? Are prices going to crash? What if we don't get any offers? Oh my goodness, we didn't get any offers. What are we going to do? Right? So there's all this like, what's next? What's next? Predictability sort of less than what we were experiencing for previous months. And so that predictability is creating a little bit of nerves out there. So the recent trends of what we were just experiencing over the last 2, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months is not normal. And so what we're seeing now is a return towards something that resembles normal. So, 115% of asking is not normal. Year to date, 2022, the Niagara region, the average sale price to asking is 110%. Forever, we were at 98, 99% of asking. That's what was normal, right? You list for 400 and you sell for 397 or whatever it was. 110% year to date is enormous. That's not normal. 19 offers on a home is not normal. 65 showings is not normal. 8 days in the market is not normal. Even back in the 2018 and 2019 markets that changed a little bit, we were up to 50, 55 days in the market. And historically, when you look back, 30, 40, 50 days is absolutely normal. So 8 days is not normal. So yes, we're going through a new market. Is the market changing? Of course it is, because what we went through for all those months in a row was not a normal market. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel, subscribe, notification bell, all that other stuff that people tell you to do. We're going to keep you up to date on the market continually, whether it's current market trends and data, supply and demand, all that good stuff. Our podcast will go up here as a video as well. Our new listings will come up here. All kinds of great stuff. We'll link out to it in the comments or in the description below as well. So yeah, do it. All right, thanks. Supply is the big equalizer. It's the missing ingredient in the soup. And so now that we've seen so much supply come online in February and March, we've seen a different climate out there. Because for so long, when we had buyers looking, there would maybe one house a week would come up. We go and see a house on a Saturday. Okay, well, hopefully we'll see you next week. And now all of a sudden you'd go out and you see 5, 6 houses at a time, right? And so that supply thing is a huge piece. So when we look at February and March combined, as I mentioned, big chunk of time there. What is that? 20 plus 31 is 59 days. Is that right? Yeah, 59 days. Those 59 days were huge for the Niagara region. For the Niagara region, second highest on record, and was only 6% below 2021. February, March 2021 were the biggest February and Marches of all time. So only 6% below here in 2022. St. Catharines, the highest February and March ever for new listings, 20% higher than what's normal. So when you go back in history, add up February and March for new listings, 20% higher for St. Catharines. Niagara Falls, second place behind 2021, and 2021 was huge for Niagara Falls for new listing inventory for February and March. Welland, second highest behind 2021. And you'll see that same trend continue across Niagara. So I think that new listing inventory thing is what is perhaps throwing people off, because we got used to being so hungry for new listing inventory, right? So out of stock, so to speak. That created this consistent, like, where are the listings feeling? So all of a sudden, when all these listings come online, people think, oh my goodness, the market's changing. Suddenly I have competition. I'm not the only listing out there now. There's 11, right? So now you got to sharpen your tools, right? You got to, maybe you have to stage the place, get better photography. For God's sakes, get better photography, write better marketing, market it better, have a strategy in place. All these kind of things that are necessary when all of a sudden you've got competition. But here's the thing. Sales have been historically very high too. February and March for sales 2022 was extremely strong. Keep in mind, last March was the biggest month for a lot of Niagara, the biggest month of all time for sales and new listings. So the fact that this February and March is second place behind last February and March tells you something, right? It's still impressive. Niagara region, 2022, February, March, the number of sales, second highest on record, 28% higher than what's normal for February, March, but still second place all time. St. Catharines, again, second place, just behind February and March 2021, 34% higher than what's normal. Niagara Falls is weird. They're having a weird run. So fourth highest in modern times, but still historically strong compared to most markets, but still fourth highest. It's sort of finding its footing in Niagara Falls. And then Welland, second highest again, behind last year, 28% higher than what's normal. So that new listing inventory and the sales both elevated, second place behind last year, both 20, 30, 35% higher than what's normal, both up and running. So what we've got here is a really active, really strong, buzzing sort of spring market. So very quickly, I want to talk about the number of sales in March as a month. So the Niagara region, last March 2021, 1,149 sales last March. That is the single biggest month on record, not just March, month, 1,149 sales. So this March 2022, 911 sales. So that was second place behind last March. It was up 44% over what's normal. So the average from 2011 to 2020, there was 644 sales in the month of March, 644 for those 10 years. Here we are in 2022. We just beat that average by 44%. So yeah, this was a big March, no matter how you slice it, for number of sales as well as new listings. So looking at the month of March and the number of homes sold in St. Catharines. So the average over the last sort of 10 or 11 years, March 2022 beat that by 35%. Again, it's important to note March 2021, the second highest month of any month for the number of homes sold. So yes, this March was down compared to last March, but we're still 35% higher than what's normal. And this March was around top 10 for the number of homes sold in any month going back to 2010. So by all accounts, again, same as the Niagara region, really strong in the number of new listings and really strong in the number of sales. So we're going to breeze through prices pretty quickly here, but what we all remember from high school economics, supply and demand, how many houses on the shelf, how many people want to buy them, that's going to dictate what prices do, right? So while we've had an increase in supply, the demand for those houses has still been elevated. Again, going back to the whole, it's a spring market situation. So we've seen, for the most part, sustained pricing across the region. Only a few cities had an increase over February, but for the most part, they all sort of held where they were. So we saw that big spike in January and then somewhat of a leveling off. So I'm going to show you over here. By the way, we had our office painted, so my F16 thing's not here. The cat with the hat is over there. I'm not sure what we're doing here, but something's going to happen. Anyway, so for pricing, Niagara region, I'll show you there. So this is going to show you back to November. So really the last 5 months for average sale prices, and you're going to see across the board. So Niagara region, March, the highest monthly average sale price on record. St. Catharines, second highest. February was the highest, but remember there was a huge historically high sale in the month of February. So if you take that out, March 2022 was actually the highest average sale price on record. But if we're keeping all the data in the bucket, then yes, February was higher than March. Niagara Falls, March was the highest average sale price on record. Welland, third highest. Really, it's been oscillating between sort of 710 and 725 so far this year for the city of Welland, and it was 589, I believe, for 2021. So they just skipped the 600s and went right into the low 700s. And then Fort Erie, the highest monthly average sale price on record was for March. Fort Erie, similar to Port Colborne, you have to be careful because you can have a bunch of high-end waterfront properties trade, and then all of a sudden it pulls the data way up. And then I'm going to show you the other cities for Niagara. Are going to scroll by here. They're what we call the small volume, all over the place cities. So Lincoln, Niagara Lake, Thorold, Font Hill, Port Colborne, because they don't have a huge number of sales, they can have a sale that pulls the number in any direction, and you'll see that with those. But in general, prices have, for again, like you'll see, Lincoln had a huge January and has sort of scaled back down since. But in general, the trends are we had a huge jump in January, and for the most part, a leveling out since then and sort of bouncing around those same numbers. Okay, so wrapping up, three things I think should be considered going forward. So with the whole is it time to panic question, right? And I think that's the nature of the beast. When we've had such sustained, relentless imbalance in the seller's favor, like I said earlier, so many things that aren't normal. When that happens, all month in and month out, of course, when there's any kind of change, everybody starts looking around. Oh my goodness, they didn't get offers. That only sold for how much? What's going on with that one? All that, when that starts to happen, it ripples, and then it creates this what's going to happen next thing. My theory, for the most part, what we're seeing is a spring is the characteristics of a spring market. If you were to do a graph showing supply of new listings or the number of sales going back to like the early 1800s, you're going to see a similar trend year in and year out. And we're in that trend right now. We're in the heightened market activity. So yes, there's still pent up demand. There's still characteristics of this, 118% of asking, 32 showings and 9 offers. That's going to happen here and there. But for the most part, the plane is sort of leveling out, and we're going to start flying in this sort of a more typical, reasonable, characteristic market of the Niagara region. So that's my theory anyway. But there's three pieces to think about that are driving where I'm coming from on this. One, demand is not infinite. There's not an endless lineup of buyers over there who want to buy that house on 123 Main Street, right? So we had a lot of pent up buyers, but over time they find their house. As supply comes on, they find theirs. So yes, there's still pent up demand, and that lineup is longer or shorter depending on where the home is, right? You've got homes in blue chip neighborhoods that will always have really strong demand, and you have other homes that frankly have been sort of punching out of their weight class. Sometimes those neighborhoods are going to get overexposed depending on what people bought the house for. So demand is not infinite. Second, how long will supply keep rolling? Are we about to have a third record month in a row? That would be 3 record months in a row with supply of new listings. If that happens again in April, then all of a sudden we have a market that's starting to get sort of satisfied as far as the demand for stock, right? So how long will this supply keep rolling, or is it going to run its course and then quiet back down in May? I'm not sure, because we're not there yet, right? And anybody tells you that they know, I would suggest that they're making it up. And then lastly, buyer confidence, interest rates, inflation, overall global events that are going on, where that confidence lies to make that big leap and move or to wait. And so that's going to feed back into is the demand infinite thing, right? So there's all kinds of external variables that are going to impact that. So all those things I think are going to combine into what happens in April, May, and June. One thing I know for sure, it's going to be statistically, it's going to be a bit of a nerd fest because there's so much going on. We've had such heightened record-breaking in either direction data that's come across. And so where does that lead to next is going to be something that we watch, obviously, because that's what we do, because we're nerds. But yeah, I wanted to roll through that. And this is sort of a follow-up to the other video, our previous video we did, where we're talking about has pricing peaked or not. I'll link that down below. But yeah, that's where we're at right now here on April 7th, 2022. So by all accounts, a very strong start to the year, particularly in the last 2 months. But by all accounts, a time of year where, or a type of market where you're going to need a really strong pricing strategy. You need to know the competition of the homes around you. Who are you up against this week? Because last week and the week before is almost irrelevant to some extent, right? So pricing. Know your competition, and then know your location. What are the trends in your specific neighborhood? Not your buddy Carl's house on the other end of the region, right? Know what's going on specifically where you are, and get a strategy wrapped around that, and what makes sense as far as pricing, offers, preparation of the house. All this stuff has never been more important. Throwing it up and hitting a home run is no longer the case. And we're going to see that. So it's a time when us realtors, have to bring value more than we ever have before to a seller to make sure that we're sharp and we got our game together, as it were. But that's another podcast or another blog, vlog, whatever this thing's called, for another day. If you haven't already, I urge you to subscribe to this channel. We update the market continually. We have our listings on here. We'll do podcast videos on here, all kinds of great stuff. So yeah, hit the subscribe notification and all that other stuff you're supposed to do, and stay in the loop. Okay, cheers, guys. We'll talk later. Thanks. Bye.